Hey everybody, Mike with Games Played Badly. Today on session 0. Hey everybody, Mike from Games Played Badly, and today on session 0. Hey everybody, Mike from Games Played Badly, and today on session 0, I interview Joel, who is the author of the Raconteur's Lexicon, a set of DM tools that I absolutely love and are up on DM's Guild. That interview starts now. But so the first three were all that kind of thesaurus aspect of it, and the fourth really kind of played into what you're doing with your fifth.
A little bit, yeah.
Because I mean, you're rolling for NPC traits and things like that, and I thought that was awesome because I'm like, I'm totally going to use that.
Oh, awesome! That's
Quick
good
generation of like an NPC with all the stuff that you need to know. You know, yeah.
Well, and for myself, I keep it up on my screen when I'm DMing. And there are times where my players are drawn to someone that I'm not expecting them to be. Yeah. I just kind of go through it and I roll some dice quickly. Yeah. And it actually, with one group I was playing with last night, it led to a whole side quest.
Yes.
Because it ended up being this NPC I rolled was a young girl who's bold and curious and kind of annoying and interested in drinking. And those are the things I rolled for her.
Right.
And the players were a little bit delayed in going to the quest that they had to go to. So this girl was like, forget it, I'm going to go. I'm going to take care of this problem because she's bold and courageous.
Right.
Ended up being that she got into the partway through the dungeon and did a little bit of the work for them because they took a rest where she went to go clear out this place. But she has become part of the party.
Yeah.
And there's some fun dynamics between her and especially the cleric. They butt heads a little bit. She accidentally hit him with her sling with a nat 1. He was in the way and I rolled a 1. And I'm like, well, she hit the cleric. And then she turned to the bar and said, whoops.
So you basically have 4 volumes that you've produced.
Yeah.
The first 3 are, again, as we were talking about, the thesaurus for DMs, which I find fascinating. So how'd you think about that idea?
It really came about because I noticed that, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, March, April, May, etc., in 2020, I was DMing a lot. I was playing in and DMing in, I think, 4 or 5 different groups. And so often in a week, I'd be playing D&D 5 times a week. And always that last hour and a half, as much as it was fun, and it was fun to hang out with friends and play this story together, I got tired. And you get tired of talking, you get tired of creating and feeling like you're always needing to be ahead of the ball. And so I really I got to come up with a different way to say attack and hit and miss, because I say those words hundreds of times in a night and I'm getting bored of hearing it myself. So it really started from that, like, I'm going to make a list of words that for attack. And then I realized that how you attack with a great axe is different than how you attack with a slingshot. So then I started to kind of put them into groups and organize them in that way. And then it just snowballed from there. Like, so what happens when you miss? Was it a miss because of the armor of the enemy, or because they dodged, or because of your, a misfire or something? And so I just kept on trying to kind of expand the idea and, pulling away the layers that kept on appearing. And it really was like an obsession for 2 weeks, several hours a day. My kids were involved in the first couple ones because
I saw they were credited.
yeah, they're both uh, voracious readers, and so they have a vocabulary that's way out there.
Mhm.
And they love fantasy and D&D and stuff too. So I utilized them. I even paid them a little bit because I started making money. I'm like, well, you've earned a bit of money too.
Right.
I had to cut them off at one point because I was like, I'm doing all the work now here, so I think you've been paid enough. Um, but yeah, it really came from my own need for I want to push myself. I want to immerse the players
Mhm.
in these moving moments that are happening, because combat, volume 1 and 2 is about combat and spells and stuff, and that should be fun and it should sound exciting.
Right.
um, and so I kept on pushing, and then I thought, well, I'm also a bit tired of thinking ways of how to describe the weather and the environment. So that's how volume 3 came about.
And so now again, I've read through all of them. I think they're fantastic. So volume 4 is more like a kind of a random NPC generator.
Yeah, so it's an NPC generator. So I looked through the Dungeon Master guide, and there's a couple of pages in there, but I wanted to expand on that. I wanted to, especially like making fun, memorable hooks for your NPCs was something that I really wanted to do. And so I just kept on coming up. I think I ended up with 80 different quirks and flaws. And just, I actually have expanded versions of them that at one point I'll publish that have even more things in it. And it really was just the feeling of, I want to create something that my players are going to remember. So, I've had a tavern keeper who has a nasty cough. And I mean, as much as that hurt my throat after 20 minutes to talk like that NPC, they remember that NPC. Or they remember that little hook. Oh, that's the guy that coughs, right? So, yeah, to me, it was always about, how do I combat being tired? And how do I make sure that there's variety and keep people entertained and immersed? That's the goal of those. And even with volume 4, I really had fun. So let's say a character is tall. Well, how else can you describe a tall person?
Right.
So I thought, well, instead of saying tall, you could say imposing or towering. Instead of long hair, well, I started thinking, well, what kinds of long hair would you have?
Right.
Braided and curly and flowing and straight, etc. Just giving DMs a whole bunch of tools of different ways that they could describe things.
Right. I think that's really interesting, because you talk about imposing, and so if you're a 6 foot half orc dealing with a 6.5 foot elf, somebody who's 3 feet tall, that would be imposing or towering even.
Yeah,
So
sure.
yeah, so it's all perspective.
Yeah, and really, like, like I said, the whole thing kind of came out of me needing to combat the feeling that
Fatigue.
I sound boring.
Yeah, right. I get it.
But really, it comes back to, I've been an elementary teacher for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and language arts is my thing. And for 20 years, I've been telling kids, can you come up with a more interesting way to say, or run, or
Mm-hmm.
go, or things like that? And so a lot of it came from my training as an elementary teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and that desire for when I'd have students come up with something more interesting that I went to the store, I trotted merrily down the street to the
Right.
store. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, there you go.
Right.
That's way better.
Yeah.
And really what I see with my students is, as much as you can, you want the reader to see what you see in your head when you write it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the store gives me a vague idea, but I merely trotted down the street. Now I have a very specific idea of what you, as the
Look like
writer,
doing it.
yeah, how are you doing it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are all fantastic things. And so that leads into your next production, which I find so amusing. I cannot wait until it's released. Tell us about that. I don't want to spoil it, but tell me all about it because I'm already excited.
Yeah, so it's a volume 5 of Raconteur's Lexicon is critical fails. I was going to call it fails and fumbles, but critical fails. There are other critical fail charts out there on DM's Guild,
Mhm.
but I'm the kind of person that likes to make my own thing.
Mhm.
And so after using some that every now and then I felt like, yeah, that's got some good parts, and others where I feel like I I just don't see that working. I have been using this with a couple of groups, play testing against their will, and it's a hoot. Like, there are so many moments that are memorable that come out of the fact that you roll in that one.
Mhm.
And so I've compiled, I've made a melee ranged combat roll table. I've got a spell attack roll table, and then I was kind of settled with that. But one of the best feedback best bits of feedback that I got from people from when I released the other ones is they would say, as a non-native English speaker,
Mm.
these are very helpful to have, right? The fact that I can now elaborate those ideas in those words. And so I was super, thankful that I got that feedback because I'd never even considered that idea. I've
Right.
even had a person email me an entire a reworking of Raconteur's Lexicon Volume 1, all in German. And it said,
Oh,
here
that's
we go.
awesome.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, that's fantastic. So I've had people contact me and say, can we make a German version? Can we make a blank version? So and so. So at one point, I kind of hope to tackle that idea too, because I think that'd be fantastic. But I don't know any of those languages, so I would need other people's help. And so with volume 5 with the critical fails, one thing I tried to do is so what about skill checks and what about saving throws? And so how can I provide ideas for things when someone fails a stealth check, right? Instead of just saying, well, you failed.
Mhm.
How can you provide a trigger or a prompt that might make the story move forward because you have failed that skill check? And so that was a lot of hard work because you're coming up with predetermined consequences um, for very open-ended situations. But that was kind of fun too, coming up with various things. So what would happen if one of the ones when you tie up a prisoner, are, and so some of these are just kind of little jokes that I put in there. One of them is you carefully weave the ropes around legs and hands, tying unsolvable knots. It's only then that you realize that you've managed to tie yourself up.
Right.
And then there's a game mechanic that goes along with that. That, well, now you are tied up. The prisoner is free to do what they want. And really, that once again comes from that idea of so instead of just saying you failed, for myself, I wanted to be able to have a repertoire of ideas at my fingertips that I can always say, yeah, this happens. The other night we were playing a Curse of Strahd, and as the party was approaching Yester Hill, I don't know if you're familiar with the campaign, but they were trying to be stealthy, and the paladin rolled a 1. So I quickly looked at my chart for a stealth fail, and and it was the one, it was just perfect because it was dark. So it's a blanketed darkness. You move silently into position when you sneeze uncontrollably loud. And then, of course, hostile creatures, they know what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
go
my
ahead.
cheeks are hurting so much because I'm smiling the entire time. Because I like when we first started this interview, I've read your stuff. I know what it is. You kind of clued me into what you were doing, and the possibilities are endless. And as a DM, my mind is going like 24/7. So I'm literally racking my brain, going, "What is he going to do with this? Like, is it going to be a simple?" It's gonna be simple. Like there used to be a Dragon magazine back in the day that had the critical hits and failure chart and everything.
Yeah.
But then once you said that there was actually skill checks in there and the fails included with that, I couldn't stop smiling because I'm like, this is amazing because I cannot wait to use this. I do this on my own already. So sorry, my nose is itchy. If somebody fails, so for instance, somebody fails a saving throw, I communicate that to the players by saying, as opposed to running out of the fireball, they ran right into it. Oops.
Sure, yeah.
That type of stuff. Or you're
Yeah.
trying to be stealthy, but your chest plate falls off or whatever. I'm trying to demonstrate the fact they failed or whoever failed terribly. But I love the fact that you're writing a supplement for that to give me even more resources to make them look ridiculous.
And by no means is this exhaustive because it
Right.
can't be, because those things are highly situational. This is all about providing ideas, and I know that there are other people who are better equipped and quicker on their feet coming up with ideas. But like I've said a few times, when I'm tired, I'm not one of those people.
Right.
And so I like having something like this there so that I can look back on it and quickly reference it and make the story continue.
So from the standpoint of, I know what you did with the NPCs, it was various different die that you used for that. Is it the same thing for the critical fails?
Well, a critical fail tables is the percentile dice, the D100.
Yep.
So the combat, which is there's one table for melee and ranged, and then there's one table for spells, and they do share some things. But whenever, like, for instance, if you're a spellcaster and you roll a 1, the result can't be your weapon breaks.
Right.
So I had to go through and make sure they were personalized for characters. What I was finding without them, I would rely on maybe 6 different things. You injure an ally, you fall, you break your weapon, your weapon drops, uh, that kind of thing. Like I maybe had, 6 or 7 ideas that I kept on going to. Now with each roll table, I think there's 35 options on each of them. They're somewhat weighted. So for instance, there's a really brutal one on the spell attack table that if you roll and you have a 5% chance of rolling a nat 1, and then you only have a 1% chance of rolling this one. But if you roll it, you lose the spell slot that you just used, and you also expend another low level spell slot, which can be pretty awful in the heat of combat.
Yeah.
But the chance of that happening is so low, whereas other ones, it's more of a 3% chance or 4% chance kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of the way it was with some of the critical hits and fail charts that I've seen is like 00. If you roll a 20, it's you decapitate.
Right.
But they were as severe as if you roll a 1 and you roll a 0-1, you somehow injure yourself or kill yourself if you're a spellcaster. So
yeah, so I do have that you can injure yourself. You don't take a whole lot of damage. I think it's 1d6. So, at higher levels, that's not going to be that much of an issue. I was trying to think of how could I level that, right? That it could be, some sort of factor in there somehow, like if you're level 1 to 5, it would be this much damage, 5, 6 to 10, it could be this much, but that got a little too wordsy for me.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm a verbose person, but I also like things to be clean and concise.
Right, I get it.
Yeah.
All right, so that sounds fantastic. I'm like super excited about this. When you told me about your project, I was like, yes, this needs to happen. And then I read through again volumes 1 through 4. And so volume 5 is your critical fails. Are you gonna do a volume 6 with your critical hits?
No, I don't have. Well, I can't say for sure. I don't have plans for it. I do have a 6th volume that's all done and ready to go.
Oh wow, okay.
But I just haven't done anything with it yet. It's all done though. It's fairly short. It's definitely more focused on DMs where from the feedback I've gotten, volume 1 and 2 still appeals a lot to players because it's about combat. Volume, all the volumes hopefully appeal to DMs as well, though.
Right. So now, when is this highly anticipated volume 5 going to be released?
Probably early March. Might even be, depending on when this video is coming out. It might already be out.
Let's see. Let's check the Wayback Machine. And is it exclusive to DM's Guild?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm super excited. I'm like, just as a DM, and I think probably as a player, thinking about the crazy stuff that could happen when you fail. Because I mean, like, failure is something not necessarily it's bad, but you can make some light of it. I mean, it's not, I don't want to make people feel bad about it, but it's like if you trip over your shoe and fall down a flight of stairs and make a whole bunch of ruckus, but you're not injured, that's funny.
Yeah. Oh, one of the best moments that one group had, they were fighting some hags in the windmill in the Curse of Strahd, and it was down to the wire. Like two of the 4 adventurers were down. The paladin and the ranger were still up. The paladin went for that, like, Hail Mary attack on one of the hags. And she was up a couple steps and he rolled a 1. And so his foot slipped and he knocked his head because he rolled really low on the critical fail table too. He slipped, knocked his head, and he was unconscious. And so it came down to just the ranger against this hag. And They were sure
Oof.
that they were done for.
Yeah.
But and so as demeaning as that moment might be, it certainly is one that we all remember, and we still laugh about.
Well,
Certain characters get a reputation as, oh, they're always rolling ones kind of thing.
mhm.
Yeah,
I think I honestly what I think that these are going to end up being is memory creators.
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think it really does boil down to that because I mean yes, I've had successes as an adventurer and as a DM. Like there are some things that I remember, but some of those fails, the way that I have to create them or the way that other people create them for me, are probably the most fun thing about it. I mean, again, so we had somebody who is supposed to be stealthy, rolls a one, falls down the stairs into the face of basically a huge dire wolf. We're level one. Dire wolf chomps on him and kills him, and he'd been in the adventure for 5 minutes.
Nice.
So I mean,
That's a
it's
good
stuff like that. You'll
intro.
never forget it.
Yeah. Now they'll be a little more careful.
I hope so.
Yeah. Or maybe not. Either
So,
way is good.
what else? I mean, so outside of the Raconteur stuff, have you produced anything else for like DM's Guild, or is that pretty much your
Yeah, I
mainstay?
do have two other items available right now. One of them is valuable materials for spellcasters,
Mm.
because I hated looking through the player handbook to see if spellcaster had the materials they needed for an item, because out of the, I don't know how many hundreds of spells there are, there's about 80 of them in total
Mhm.
now, that you need, let's say, 50 gold piece worth of blank
Yeah,
to
you're absolutely
cast.
correct.
Yeah, and so I couldn't stand looking through and waiting, players having to look through. And
Right.
I know a lot of DMs just ignore that part, but if you have a party that wants to play with that, I kind of like that idea of, I just have like an 8-page document. It's sorted in a variety of ways, from like class, value, uh, alphabetical,
Mhm.
etc. So that you can easily find the thing, what components get spent, how much are they
Right.
worth, etc.
Joel, you're a genius because we just went through this last weekend with somebody casting a spell, and we're like, I think that requires a certain amount of gold piece item, whether it be a gem or a very specific, like gold dust or whatever. And it just, again, spellcasters are so unprepared, just as
Yeah.
people, that they
Oh,
never know
I'm
what their
gonna do.
spells require.
I'm gonna do this. What does it do? I don't know.
Yeah, it's 45 minutes for them to look up Fireball. It's like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and really a lot of it too, with that one, came about because the player said, "Hey, in order to cast this spell, I need to have blank," but we never find that kind of thing. So now that I know, now that I have that document,
Hmm.
when they're fighting creature that, let's say, some of them have innate spell casting where they don't need components, but other ones don't have that. But I also figure if they're fighting a wizard, then there's a chance a wizard's going to have some sort of components on him
Oh, absolutely.
that they should be able to loot.
Hmm.
And so instead of just you find gold and a scroll, it's, oh, you also find what is one of them, like a small skull on a blah blah blah, etc.
Yeah, right.
And they know right away. Oh, okay, that's something cool.
Right. Or like a
Yeah.
10-pound brick of myrrh that you need to have for
Sure.
whatever it is.
Yeah. So really, it was a way to answer the question for my players: where do we ever find this?
Hmm.
It was a way to make that happen.
Right.
So that was one. That one I just have as pay what you want on DM's Guild,
Hmm.
because I kind of felt like none of that is my creation. It was just a week of organization, but I didn't make any of that up.
Right.
So if people want to take it for free, they can.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'd appreciate the money, but that's
Right.
all right. And then the other one I have on DM's Guild is based on the Curse of Strahd campaign. It's called Valaki's Got Talent, because the main town in the area, Valaki, when you meet a certain NPC, he wants to take you to it says in the book, it's like one sentence says that he's looking for performers, but the book doesn't elaborate on that at all. So I took that sentence and turned it into like a one session supplement.
Nice.
He's looking for performers, so you're gonna perform. So when I ran that with my group, they had poems, they had songs, they had magic tricks, they performed archery feats, etc. They had all these things prepared, and then I created a like an applause meter, and well, I can't remember what it's called. I gave it some sort of Germanic Romanian sounding name. And then as they gain favor from the crowd, or if they do something and do it really poorly, they lose favor from the crowd,
Mhm.
then that affects the story going on, or can, like, a
Mhm.
DM can choose to supersede that all they want. But the idea being that, like, if they end up with this result, the people of Valaki love them, and therefore the party can do these things.
Mhm.
If they end up on this side of the applause meter, the people of Valaki hate them and don't want to ever see them again.
Right.
And so it really came about from that one line in the campaign book. And I thought, well, that feels like it needs to be expanded.
Yeah, Joel, I think you're kind of brilliant. I mean, I think everything that you've created from this standpoint is something I'd buy. I I just love that it's that one sentence and you have an entire like one shot module based off it. I mean, that's the way your brain works. And the Raconteur stuff is really cool. I'm excited about volume 5. I'm pleased to know that there are other things out there like the spell component stuff. I mean, who would have thought about summarizing that stuff? So it was like in one easy reference material,
Mm-hmm.
because there are DMs who deal with that. Or as a matter of fact, the person who DMs for my second group that I'm in is very much into, do you have that? See, if you think about like resurrection or restoration or revivify, all those have some pretty hefty components of that
Yeah,
you need to
I
have.
think it's 25,000 gold
Yeah,
for one of them. And
right,
so you can't just say, oh, I'm going to use this spell. Like, no.
right.
So to me, that's part of the balance of the game.
Agreed.
The fact that, yes, you can have that spell, but you need to, there's a risk involved by paying these things.
Right.
And that is part of the balance of it.
Agreed. And again, people don't realize that until they really look into it. And to have somebody dig through a book for an hour trying to find it, it's easier to say, just go ahead and cast it and be done with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, a really great piece of a compliment that I got from someone. They just said, "This should be in the player handbook."
Right. Right.
To have it organized this way is so much easier to use.
Right. I agree. Items that I didn't even know existed. We haven't really talked about those up until this interview. I think are phenomenal. I love the fact that you took one line. I was like, that is worthy of writing an entire one shot about. And I think it's hysterical.
Oh, it was one of the funnest sessions we've had. And it had consequence for the story, which you couldn't ask for a better combination, right? The fact that
Agreed. Yeah. I mean,
the players came to with something on the table. I
right.
told them, we ended the session saying, hey, the festival is tomorrow. And so then, in the week in
They had
between,
homework.
they got things ready. They had even like YouTube videos or like jokes prepared, songs, etc.
Love that.
So they came prepared, and so even in the module itself, I even say here are some things you could do,
Right.
because it is totally open ended, of course.
It's gonna go kind of crazy.
Yeah, like if if your player is not comfortable doing these things,
Mm-hmm.
well, they could find something, a magic trick on YouTube
Right.
and say, well, here's what my character does.
Mm-hmm.
And even that it's a bit of a break, it's something different. And then we get to imagine, what happens because the character has done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a couple other things that I'm slowly chipping away at. Sometimes I describe it as I have uh, either too many irons in the fire or I have too many fires. One of the two.
Yeah. Right.
And so I've got a few other bigger uh, items that I am working on and slowly chipping away at.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the kind of thing that every now and then an idea hits me and I work on it for a couple nights and I leave it alone for a while and come back to it.
Well, I mean, it seems like your group is an inspiration for you to create these things. How long have you been playing with these people?
So I have a couple of groups that I play with.
Mm-hmm.
The one group that I've talked mostly about tonight, they're all new players except for one. And we've been playing just over a year now.
Okay.
But we've known each other and they've known, so I've known them for 25 years.
Mhm.
And some of them have known each other for more like 35 years. They went to school together as kids, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we've known each other for a long time, and that definitely helps as well. We're a lot more comfortable with each other, and they come up with some crazy stuff that makes me, like the other day, I was fully expecting them to go one way and they decided to go another way. So while they're talking about it, I'm just furiously, opening up tabs and getting stuff ready and trying to just trying to listen to what they're saying
Mm-hmm.
while also trying to stay a little bit ahead of them. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
the other night one of them brought a poem, an epic poem that he wrote about his character. Another player had written elegies for all the characters for when they die. And they're brilliant. And so and in my other group too, they're fairly new players. I think all once again except for one, but the ideas that they come up with, I'm constantly on my toes.
Right.
And that's the joy of it, is being it's a little bit like teaching
Mm-hmm.
in that way, that you're coming up with stuff. You might plan stuff, but when that kid asks a different question that you didn't anticipate, it might take the lesson a totally different direction, and you want to honor that and explore that with the kids. So
Right.
I think being a teacher has helped quite a lot. But the tools that I make, with the Raconteurs and the valuable materials, it really is like, if someone wants to be a DM and they find certain aspects of it overwhelming, then I want to do what I can to make it easier for them.
Mm-hmm. I will provide links to all of your items in the description for this video, so that way people can check them out. I highly recommend volume 1 through 4 for sure, because I've already gone through those. When volume 5 is released, I'll make sure that I update all of my stuff, so that way it's all right there. I'll make sure it's part of my Twitter feed as well, so that way I'm promoting the new stuff that's coming out, and then the 2 that you have that are out there already, which I think are fantastic. I'm looking at you DMs right now. You need those items, especially if you're playing Strahd, or if you're not playing Strahd. I think it would be great to adapt like Waterdeep's Got Talent, or whatever, whatever town it is that you want to incorporate this into. It's a great break from the monotony of the dungeon crawl, and it brings some levity and some fun. And you give people homework, sure. People go home and they try and, maybe they try and tie a cherry stem with their tongue, and like that's my thing,
There you go.
But I do have one thing that I do with all of my guests, and it's silly and it's stupid, but it's kind of fun. I do a little lightning round.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna ask you some quick fire questions, and all I need are your answers, and you can give me a response back, or you can just leave it flat, however you want to do it.
Okay. Well, I'm a talker, so I'll give a response. But I'm gonna wet my whistle.
No, you know
first.
what? Hold on. You know what you are? You're a raconteur.
Oh, thank you.
See, there we go.
All
right. So, hard-hitting question: vanilla or chocolate?
Oh wow, vanilla yogurt, but chocolate almost anything else.
Okay, that's interesting. I always ask my guests coffee or tea.
I grew up drinking tea.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I drank coffee was on a date with the girl. I had to put so much sugar in it, she just laughed at me because she was an experienced coffee drinker. And that probably made coffee a little bit tough for me from that point on.
Right. So spring or fall?
Oh, we were just talking about that the other day. Wow. Probably spring, because as a teacher, you are looking forward to summer.
Yeah, right. Didn't think about that, but yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Steak or chicken?
Well, yeah, we eat more chicken here, so I would say if you're buying it, I'd go steak.
Well, look, if I'm ever up there, I'm buying a steak for you.
Okay,
guaranteed.
fantastic. Alberta beef.
Yeah, right, exactly. Smooth or chunky?
Chunky.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was saying to my wife, everything is better when it has a crunch.
I agree with you. Yeah, I think that's well, Joel, we didn't actually officially do an introduction, and that's fine because we didn't need to. We just went right into it. I have had such a good time talking to you. I cannot wait for your stuff to be released. I think you have a brilliant mind and a kind soul, and thank you so much for being here with me.
Well, thank you, Mike. Yeah, what a fun way to spend an evening.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
And your beard, and your, as much as I've been working on my beard. This is the longest I've had my beard bigger, but I've been trimming it, and yours puts mine to shame. So
well, this is my COVID beard, so until I get vaccinated, it's gonna keep growing.
Okay, I think, see, my wife likes my beard, so I'd rather have it short, but this is for her.
Right. Well, I wish you all the best. And again, I'm going to make sure that everyone knows about your stuff when it drops. I recommend, again, looking at the camera at all my DM friends. You need to look at this stuff because I've read through it. I'm going to use it. I think you should use it. And I wish you the absolute best, and we will talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Not a problem.
Yeah, no, it was fun. And I've had interviews for whatever reason that afterwards you think, how did that person get that job? And why do they think that they can be doing this? And
yeah,
you are, a natural, charismatic interviewer. So
thank you.
Definitely found something that is a gift for you.
I very much appreciate that. Thank you, Joel.